Okay. This is me, post-production edit, as I was going through the original footage. I'm doing these as shorts, and there is a musical part at the end of the last section which shows this. And so it's important that I to mention that that video is now hidden, so the location of that video is found in the description. So the visual aid of that video is there in front of you. So I'm not going to. Will I play it? No. All right. So I'm not going to play the music, but this video, and I think I might actually release this video as its own video. I'll have to think about it. Anyway, back to the originally scheduled program. Thank you. I did that with the visual aid so you could see the wave form. We're talking about higher frequencies, and as always, I need to have a visual aid. What are we talking about? What can at this point in these discussions of the rising frequencies, I can't have this discussion without a visual aid, put it that way. We're talking about the Schumann resonances. I legitimately cannot have a discussion about that without a visual aid. This is video. I mean, for no other reason than this is video, that I need to have a visual context, at least something there on the screen, that even if it's just me reading it, the most basic thing I can do is have research of writing, and I'm reading that, So in all of this, the visual aid becomes super important. And so as we move forward, and discuss these topics, I have to continually kind of introduce a visual aid, and in some cases things I've already shown, but with under new light and these sort of things. So what I did was, in the meantime of after having, kind of recuperated from the loss of all of the data, the speaking that I had, that, oh man, now we got to redo all that. All right. So in the meantime, what I did was I went ahead and I made a two images, a capture, which is just a quick picture of the image, on a computer. It's not recording it per se, it's capturing it. There's a little different kind of thing going on, but it's the picture based on the actual wave. So like I do with the Schumann resonance reports, I capture it from my browser. I captured this from Audacity, and I left a little time code thingies on it, so you can see the time code that we're dealing with. This is at 136.6, and it's 136.72. So this is hundredth of a second of waveform versus 1 second worth of music right around here. The 136, right? Just this is right around in the middle, even though I don't have the slider on exactly the same point. Like that exact point is like 137, 136, 137 right here. So all of that, this, all of this, 136.6 to 136.72 is right here. Okay. So this was why it was actually kind of a better thing that I had to remake this, because now I have an illustration that you can go by, that we can see. Here's a visual illustration of frequencies, that, rising frequencies, what does that actually mean relative to sound and audio? Okay. And it's got the numbers on the side, the amplitude numbers on the side, so we can see a wave going from a baseline of 0, right here at a baseline of 0, to a positive 5, positive 1, or 0.5 rather, okay? And this is decibels. Actually, not pico decibels, but decibels, right? You got to remember the decibel scale is a relative scale based on the tens, 10, the tens system for measuring the amplitude, the strength of amplitude, the strength or amplitude or intensity of a signal, an electric signal. So depending on what the sensitivity of the equipment is, you could have a decibel like we have here, and this is also negative decibels. You could have that, as well as pico electron volts of the Schumann resonances, which is, 0.000000000001. So the decibel is an actual, it measures both an intensity of scale, but it is also a physical measurement of sound, right? Sound pressure level is basically a decibel. Okay. So this is not measuring the strength of the electric field. This is measuring an actual decibel. It's sound. All right. So just so we know that, just so we have that clear. Right. So I wanted to have a close-up of 1 second of music so you can see. And hold on. Oh, please, system processing. There we go. Good boy. Pats himself on the back. All right. So this here is your full 1 second. You see, it's 1 minute, 36 seconds, 0.0. And then we're at 1 way down here, 137.0. All right. So this is important to show you that it's not just frequencies that are involved, there's also harmonics. Okay. So it's important to understand that there's not just frequencies involved, there's harmonics. And so as the frequencies rise, so too do the harmonics, but the first primary ones don't go away. That's an important thing to understand. The primary underlying frequencies don't go away. Right? So that's important to understand. All right. So I wanted to show that, like I said, I wanted to show that as a visual aid. It's the same basic time that you can see clustered up in an area that's not, it's basically this whole area here. So all of this is, in fact, this area right here. And on the other one, where is it? Yeah, there we go, somewhere in there. All right, so this area here. And on the other one, you'll notice samples, okay? So where it just suddenly, it's not necessarily smooth, okay? And you can see the peaks within the peaks of the harmonics, right? And as we played it, as you saw, the waveform would kind of loosen up and tighten up and get intense. And that's what we're talking about, of what's more important, rather than the rising frequencies, is the intensity of the frequencies themselves. All right. And that's what I wanted to show you here as we did this. All right. So, as I said in the first part of this, if I remember correctly, I'm not going to have any music in these, or not long music, but I think I am going to, at the end of this, play an outro music, a Aaron mix outro music of like a cigarette breaks worth, maybe no more than 5 minutes. All right. 4:44 would be my time constraint on that, just 3 minutes, 3:33 to 4:44, somewhere in that time frame is what I'm looking for the music to last, just so you know. And like I said, I'm going to string these all together in a larger one and have another, I'm going to do a premiere. These are just shorts. The shorts aren't supposed to have music, but I know you love the music, and this is actually a good mix. So, and oh, good God. The videos are Aaron Mix vehicles, Aaron Mix vessels. All right. So, I explained that. I have on Patreon. I'm not going to put this on any of the other ones, any of the other venues, but on Patreon, I'm putting the secondary pictures so you can see, because this is my teaching aid. This is my visual aid. And I do more for the Patreon folks because you support me than I do in the other, just so you know, right? So the people, the 5 or 6 of you that are on Patreon, I want you to have a little bit more than the rest of, everyone else, right? And I've said this before, just so you know, I have stuff that is open to the public if you have a Patreon account. So just by the virtue of you, having a Patreon account, right? There's stuff over there that I periodically make free to the public, right? It's just, you could start your subscription to help me with $1. Just that's it. You can go through everything and see what's there. I don't have a minimum set. I don't have any tiers. I don't have any minimums, any of that. So $1, $1 literally $1 in the bin, gets you entry into the wonderful world of Patreon. That again I do more for because you guys support me. Like just the 6 of you are the most. I don't want to say you're the most important of my fans, but you've been there the longest. That's all right. So the Aaron mix literally was titled EHH, which is something house. I think one of the H's is house. 325 2022 again, and I just because I want to play music. I love music. Like I don't freaking care anymore. So we're starting out. I've explained this already. What kind of the purpose is, what the intent of this is. And again, if you're new here, welcome. Remember to like, share, comment, subscribe. Please hit the bell, the notification bell. Select all. Make sure you get. You've requested all the notifications, or you're likely to get none, or they'll be late, or they'll be retarded, or whatever. And you want to like and share those things as well, because that means that the channel is important to you, and it'll pop up, percolate. The word is percolate up in your algorithm more often. So just a public service announcement from me to you. Thank you very much. All right, so these are some of the questions, and again, this one here, you got to remember, each of these I strung it together from pieces that had not intended to be put into a bigger narrative. Each one of these, the 6, I now have 6 sections or chapters, 7, I think actually, 6 or 7 chapters of this that I'm working on that are going to be the book, right? So, so far this is what I have for the book. This book I'm hoping to publish with help by the grace of the gods. Oh, and I forgot to say this. I'm now 12, almost 13. Perfect. 13 minutes into this. This particular video, this section of the video is dedicated to Jacqueline. The rest of the 10 of you as well, yes, I do these videos always for the 10. There's the 10 special ones of you, and then the honorary 10 as well, 10-ish as well. But this one in particular for Jacqueline, who's my sister from another mister, I'll just say. And she's a wonderful person. She's been keeping me motivated and inspired as well. And she gives me the reason, she has been giving me the reason to kind of keep doing these, where I might otherwise have given up hope, if you will. She's inspired me to keep plugging on because why? You're still alive. Why not? What else are you going to be doing? Like, what else? Yeah, you got a point. And, hopefully if I do this, the videos, I will have created overall the content by the time it's done for the book, right? There's a book and a video. The video sells the book, and I don't know, just follow the pathway, and it will kind of reveal itself as you move along. That's sort of one of the messages that's provided by the guides, my guides. And, I offer that humbly to you, that if you don't know what the next step is, do the next right thing. Do what you think you might need to do just to keep moving on, just to keep it moving along. right? What's the thing right in front of you? Sometimes the next thing that you got to do is right in front of you. Find your feet, find your shoes, find your socks, right? Where are your keys? Where's my phone? Where's my wallet, right? Just keep it moving along. Keep your sanity in place, right? Sometimes that's what the most important thing that you can do for yourself is not blame. That's part of what this is about as well, is to give you the tools of understanding, not to blame the Schumann resonances, not to fix that as the causation, uh, not the sun, not the central sun, not none of that. Not none of that in no way, shape, or form is the first concern. No, your sanity and grounding is the first thing to consider when you're losing your marbles. And oh my God, is it a solar flare? Well, even if it is, you still need to ground. How do you do that? You call back your energy, you call back your frequencies to the lower realms, right? So I'm still sort of in the preview mode of this, I think, but where this falls into is the understanding of the higher orders, higher frequencies are not helping you, they're not your friend. And part of it is because I've talked about this, part of it is because of the rhetoric and being be aware of, be wary of the rhetoric used. And so, in this, one of the first questions that we look at is scientification. What is scientification? Right? And so I address that. That's a phrase I learned through a certain organization, church, mystery school, they call themselves, uh, they use the phrase scientification. And so I never got a clear answer on it, and then things started sort of making sense. They tried answering it, but they couldn't, and I think I've been able to figure out what exactly the word scientification means, because it's not just localized to that one group of people with whom I did the vegetal. Right? I'm not going to use their name, but they are the group I did. I took sessions of ayahuasca, the vegetal, with, in 2016, 17, 18, at that point. And that's one of the phrases they used was scientification. And I had no idea what it meant. I couldn't, the vegetal, when you do the vegetal, when you do a session, there's a question and answer. The representative maestro, the head, the master, representative master, who's at the, officiating everything under the arch. There's an archway, and, peace, love, and light is our code. So as they have the part of the session where you can ask questions, I asked, what's scientification? And they answered. They gave, they answered. They addressed it the best way they could. Couldn't tell you what it really meant. Maybe because there was a difference of, in the translation between Portuguese and, these are Brazilians from the jungle. Some of them right from the jungle of Brazil. And so, something gets lost in translation with English, even if you know English. Like all right, like all right. However, there's got to be some huge social or cultural subtext context to the word scientification in, conjunction with the vegetal that you just got to ask it. You got to ask the spirit of the vegetal itself, the Burhasheta, what exactly scientification is, and then eventually they tell you, you wind up at the castle of science. Right? I believe that was the phrase, the castle of science, not scientification, right? But the castle of science, the storehouse, essentially, of not just knowledge, but of science, basically. So they in the sessions they look at science as there's a castle that you go to and you can ask it. So I want to, because I have a good camera today, I wanted to show you. It's my own concoction. All right, so the vegetal, on the subject of the vegetal, and I would like to imagine that the aliens, we are the dream of the aliens, and yet what's in there, what is in there, you know, the pot. That's what they're doing to dream us up. You know? And honestly, I think they should go back to the drawing board and dream a little more. Dream a little dream for me. Dream a little dream for me. All right. So we look at scientification in terms of how that applies to rising frequencies and rhetoric. And this is part of the discussion of not just rising frequencies, but ascension and, all of this of where we're going, what's happening, the tech and the tech aspect is having to use words to describe or define other words. Right? So, what is our rhetoric on science? That's basically what scientification means, is scientific rhetoric, if you will. Right? That's the short version. So we're going to discuss that. And then why are frequencies specifically not rising? We have to take a look at the phrase rising frequencies. What do they mean? What's actually rising, right? If we're going to use this phrase rising frequencies, what does it mean? Okay, and how are we, what's rising? Okay, and so one of the areas that I discuss is, if someone is out there somewhere, it's put my people, my observers. Right? If it's put to you, this expression, rising frequencies, or frequencies are rising, you got to ask, frequencies of what? What are you measuring? Right? Not to be a wise guy, not to be a dipshit about this, but what are you measuring and who's measuring it? What are you using to measure? Where's your baseline? Okay? And that was extremely important of why I'm showing you this here, our baseline. Where our baseline, see this? 0? Right? This is why this is important. A baseline. What's our baseline? Rising frequencies. You see, it goes up. It can't keep going up without it going down and not be a frequency. Are you confusing amplitude with frequency? Question mark. Are you? I don't know. I'm not. Are you confusing amplitude with frequency? Right? An intensity number with a frequency number? I don't know. That's what needs to be asked. That's what needs to be addressed. And if you can't explain that and express that, then frequencies may not actually be rising. Okay? Just without going any further, without going into hearsay on anything else, okay? Just on that point as well, if you can't define what actually is rising, what frequency you're talking about, and a lot of people might come at you and say, oh, it's brainwave frequency. Okay, that's something we address in time. That's something, right? Okay, it's fine. It's within the scope of that, but it needs to be asked. If you say rising frequencies, what is actually rising? Okay, is it the Earth? Right, because the Earth's frequencies are not of necessity rising. Are you giving the Schumann resonances, the graphs from Tomsk as the evidence that frequencies are rising? Because that's not what that's showing. You have to account for the sunspot cycle, okay? The diurnal variations, which include the 22-year sun-solar cycle, okay, the sunspot activity, okay? Got a video, got research on that, okay, all right. So, for example, are you bringing up the data from Cumiania, Italy, which is attached to the seismic activity? Like the frequency of seismic activity, is that right? Or are you there confusing frequency with intensity? You see the red on the channel 1, the channel 2 Channel 1 is the seismic over there. Channel 1 is the seismic. Channel 2 is the vertical conductivity channel. So, are you confusing the amplitude, decibels, the vertical conductivity channel with the frequency, which is seismic, a true frequency, which is the seismic attached to the seismic activity? Question mark. I don't know. I'm not. I know how to read the graph. Do you? Okay. So we step forward to address the next kind of thing that if it's not that, okay, why are they not rising? Okay, are they rising? If not, why? All right, maybe I'll adjust this. This is why I do this, so I can kind of reassess the script that I have, and as I'm going along. So, oh please. Okay, duly noted. All right, so then what? All right, so if, like I said, so our three, we have our of rising frequencies. All right, what's measurable? Okay, an attitude, right? And I go into this, an attitude, a behavior. These are not things that are measurable through a frequency or in any way. I don't even know, your spiritual belief, all these things. Like there's a whole number of things that are associated with rising frequencies that are not measurable as a frequency. They're not a frequency, not measurable as a frequency, and are not able to be described as a frequency other than just this phrase, rising frequency is a magical mystery tour. I'll just put it that way. All right. So what, if anything, is actually rising in frequency? So we've addressed that. If it's not the Earth itself, it's not the Schumann resonances. Don't confuse, amplitude with a frequency. Is it earthquake activity that may be, increasing in frequency to coincide with the rise of, the solar cycle? We're going into a solar cycle. We're number 26 into sun cycle number 26. Okay, so it is, for those who are familiar with this, it is expected that there would be an increase in seismic activity to coincide with volcanic unrest or volcanic activity as well, magma moving. Okay, so seismic would be the crust itself, what they call the low velocity zone underneath the crust. So that moving in it and causing seismic activity in addition to the other component of the magma moving, volcanic activity as well. And quite honestly, just as a reminder, they spend all this money in Italy and in more places doing VLF and seismic monitoring because it's more important to know, quite honestly, I'm just humbly submit to you, it's more important to know seismic activity, earthquake activity that's, in an area that's hilly and mountainy that they get landslides. And over there where you got Etna and Vesuvius and all over there, not Spumoni, Stromboli, crazy displays of they call it Strombolian type volcanoes because it's for a reason. It's like that's kind of the quintessential, crazy volcano. So it's more important to monitor seismic than it is the atmospheric vertical conductivity channel. But they go hand in hand. It's not always 100%, but it's often enough, and depending on the amplitude of the signal, and it can also drop. There's an ambient kind of total electron content that's happening. They can also drop. They talk about that as well. That's notable, which means it's transferring current from one place to another, and that's actually notable, right? Anyway, of itself, right? It's statistically notable, so it's all right. Well, it's something to be said there. So if it's not the Earth itself, and for a number of reasons, it's not the Earth. There's too much water, right? First and foremost, the frequency of the Earth is not rising. All right, the poles are shifting; they're reversing, right? So the current is slowing down. essentially. Right? Earth's frequency is slowing down and not speeding up because of the imminent, pole swap. Right? It just, it's the field is decreasing, the current is slowing down. It's just there's just a number of things that are happening. Lightning is traveling upward, all this kind of stuff that are significant to, supporting the narrative that Earth's frequency is not increasing. Right? There's too much water to give you an accurate frequency reading of Earth itself. Right? It's just something to be understood that Earth has a wobble, and you can't measure her frequency as you think you can, as people try to. Right? It's too much water. First and foremost, right? Um, uh, and so if the Earth herself is not rising, the Schumann resonances are not rising, the seismic activity is not necessarily rising, not in the way that they say it is, based on some ascension stuff, human thinking, right? That's a little different. The machines, I've said before, the AI, the machines, the sensors, the meters, electronics, anything electric, anything battery powered, anything you plug in, Wi-Fi enabled, all of that is what is increasing in frequency. So, why is 5D irrelevant to rising frequencies? Well, because I think actually 5G is more relevant to your rising frequencies, quite honestly. 5D is not a thing. Right? Are you talking about fifth density or fifth dimension? Does it matter to you? Do you think it's the same, or are they just words? Right? That's why it's irrelevant. Why are we not moving into 5D? Right? Because what is 5D? You can't give me any definition, because what is it? Fifth density or fifth dimension? Right? I know the difference between the two. I can explain it. Blah, 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 whatever. However, I know we're not really moving into 5D. I live right here now in 5D. Wonderful 5D land. Your third dimension, 3D, yeah, it exists. There is a thing, but there's also, right, the first most important thing is my impeccable timing. You may think that's nothing, but oh, that is indeed something. I assure you. And that is, in a nutshell, it's not living by the linear clock. Living in 5D, here's a secret to this. Why we're not moving into 5D. We're already here. Relative to whatever else you might think, it's here now, right? If you don't step into it now, when a more clear, you're not going to have it when you need it, right? It's just not, you're going to be waiting and waiting, forever waiting, right? If you don't tap into that power now with all the distractions and all the stuff, it's here. That's the only way to get out of it, out of the muck of this, of the rising frequencies thing, is to step off of the linear clock, right? The time clock, the devil's how's that expression? The devil's handcuff, if you will. The linear time. You got to get off the linear time and move on to intuitional time, which is I'm going to listen to the voice that tells me to be where I need to be at the time I need to be, when, and whoever. You be as prepared as things as you can be, but you want to step off of, as it were, the time grid, and that's the first thing, the linear time grid. Right? It is nonlinear. It is this. It is that. And as a motherfucker, it is linear. It is like an anchor. It is most definitely linear, because time here is short. It's like this. It's finite, right? We one of the things we come here to learn is finite time. Right? We all have whatever length of time we have here in this physical body. It's still a short time, 90 years even. The Earth is billions and billions and billions of years old, whatever, millions, and however many billions, whatever, millions of billions. and it's still chugging along. The sun, all of this. You know, we are gifted with life in this form, so we can get to understand it this way. Yet there are other forms that you can take where you can understand this differently. You know, like, all right. So the life here is short. It's spark. It's, you know, the spark of life, the spark of creation, the spark of God. Yeah, literally, it's a spark. It flares into existence, burns, and then it flares out of existence. And that's your life, no matter how long you are, right? So your life itself, as you live here, is rising in frequency. Yet, maybe it's not, right? So what, if anything, is actually rising in frequency, right? Are we moving into 5D, right? The non-linear time, you living by impeccable timing, right? Divine timing, right? Of you happen to showing up when you're needed or when you've been called forth. As an example, when the student is ready, the master appears. Right? That's one of those things that's important about moving into 5D. Are you the student or the master? Right? You know, it doesn't necessarily matter. It doesn't matter to me. I don't care. You know, but to you and your pathway, right? What side are you on? Right? And it doesn't take much to go from being the student to keep practicing the basics, blah, 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 to mastering the basics. And you move into that. You step into that role of being a master and then teaching people what they need to know based on your experience and being there at the right time at the right place. Right? That's how that works. When the student is ready, the master appears. The master is ready. Always prepared, always ready. Right? That's part of the discipline of what makes you a master, of mastering it. It's just you're always ready. Right? However, the student is not always ready. So the student needs to be. When the student is ready, master appears. Right? And oftentimes, the master says, "We're waiting." Like, what took you so long? Been waiting for you. I've been here the last, 5 months waiting for you. I've seen you. I've watched you. Or as Don Juan told Carlos Castaneda, I smoked you. I love that expression. I've been here a number of times, seen you. I went unnoticed to you. I've been here, been waiting. They told me to be here. They told me you and that and this. They told me the story, and I already know. They told me. Yeah, I've just needed you to be ready. You weren't ready yet. Okay, it took you a few months. All right, now you're ready. You had that near-death experience, so I was telling you, there you go. That made you ready. I don't know what it takes to what it takes. It takes what it takes. That's a spiritual principle. It takes what it effing takes. But it takes your work and your dedication, right? Whatever that is, right? That's just, you got to understand that. There isn't a moving forward into 5D until you cause it, until you move it, until you get it, until you get it, right? Otherwise, you're stuck. Until you start exercising it, you don't have it. That's why we are not collectively moving into 5D, because I'm already there. I'm waiting, and you're just fiddling around. Oh, I'm not gonna, manifest this shit until we're all in full 5D, and man, you're gonna be left behind. You're gonna be left on the shoreline waiting for it, because we're all on the bus getting 5D to percolate up. Duh. How do you think it happens? By the people that know, assumedly, that know what's going on, is they make it happen here. That's how it happens. Is it doesn't happen magically. There isn't a magic. There's you willing it, and through your actions, you moving it into happen. And if you can, to talking people into getting a vision in their head. And if you're on your game, if you're on point, then what you say will resonate with them, and you'll move them. You shake it loose. And that's how it happens. Right? All right. So that's why we're not moving into 5D, is because some of us are already here. We're waiting for you to make it make it happen, right? So that's why I'm reminded Jackie, Wacky Jackie, aka Mental Grace, um, uh, is kind of my little earth angel and kind of inspired me here that there is a message. People need to hear this, that there's an important part in this to play of this discussion here, this most basic of things, the rising, first off, rising frequencies, and secondly, talking about moving into 5D and what that means is, and all the upside downedness of all the rhetoric and diabolical, jargonationing of the scientificationing of the sentient-based rhetoric and blah 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 blah. Oh, good dear me. So that's why we're not. If you're not already in 5D using it, you're not going to be there when the rest of us are having a good time. Like, you're not just going to step into it and, oh, yeah, I was there at the beep. Yeah, no, you said I'm not doing nothing until we're moving into 5D. The rest of us are just kind of lumping around you, trying not to be in your way as you cause a mess. What is 3D? What is 5D? All right, where am I? All right, what is 3D? What is 5D? All right, so I discuss, at some part in here, I discuss, the difference of 3D and 5D and all these, trigonometry terms and the bullshit of the rhetoric and the misdirection of all of that stuff. And, it's just, you got to know it. All right. So, thank you for being here, for reading my work. All right, so I should play music here. Oh, what the fuck? All right, so I'm gonna play a little music just because I want to. I'm at 41 minutes. This short is not gonna be short, I have to say. And so, what the fuck? I'm gonna play music. See what we got. All right. Onward and upward. Okay, let's bring it back home.